Retention is the key to success in many things, not just World of Warcraft. It can be a measure to indicate how good your company is to work for. If you've got a high retention rate and you're not turning over staff left, right, centre, it must be a good place to work. It can be how good your food is in a restaurant. If you keep getting returning customers wanting more of your amazing chicken breast, don't know why breasts had to come up in the intro. But it's a good indicator, if you're retaining your regular customers, that you're doing the right thing. When it comes to World of Warcraft, retention should be the primary metric Blizzard obsess over. We all saw the spike of players when TBC was on the horizon, and we'll see a very similar theme when Wrath of the Lich King gets announced. The problem Blizzard have had throughout all of Classic is actually keeping people coming back. Part of this is to do with the type of game it is. A game or an expansion that has been available to the masses in the form of private servers for a decade. And on the most part, the private server developers understand what the player base want more than Blizzard, so the experience is a better one. People still flock from private servers to Classic though for the larger player base and the fact that playing on official servers feels more real. The proof is in the pudding here. What is it with food in this video? Before TBC launched, the private server scene for TBC was booming. There was multiple servers all thriving. And I personally haven't heard of a fresh TBC server since TBC Classic was announced. I'm sure once it moves on to Wrath, there'll be private server developers who see the opportunity to cater to an audience that want a fresh experience of TBC again, and they'll start popping up. Before we get too far in, just a quick thank you to all you guys in the banner below who have joined the channel as a member. More on how you can support the channel at the end of the video. Now, if we start at the end first and work our way back, Blizzard understand retention all too well, actually. The problem is they took systems too far to encourage people to log back on. Almost to the point where you feel like you're getting left behind after going on holiday for 2 weeks, and that could be where you ditch retail for something else. This may seem like an extreme example, and it really is, but it's not too far from the truth. Being a week or two late on getting your legendary or legendaries could cost you your spot in a raid, because from my experience, even going back as far as Mr. Pandaria, the legendary cape made up for around 15% of your damage. Why take someone without it when you have an option of taking someone with it? It's a no-brainer. Rewind back from retail to Wrath of the Lich King, which as most of you know is the content I'm focusing on primarily at the moment. And during Wrath of the Lich King, you are encouraged to log on and do some simple things. But if you don't, you're not at a massive disadvantage. No obvious power loss, and in fact, the vast majority of the time, you can get something equal or more powerful by other means. You may be confused over what I'm talking about here, so let's start with the effects of character power, your emblems. With each tier of content, a new emblem becomes available with a higher item level of gear that you can use these emblems for to purchase. For example, in each tier you can obtain 2 current pieces of tier gear through emblems. And of course, all tier sets are different. Some are more powerful than others when it comes to the set bonuses. But if you've got a particularly powerful one, ensuring you maximise the amount of emblems that you get every week is encouraged. And this is by doing your daily dungeon or daily heroic, well both, and when random dungeon finders in the game, doing your random heroic, and of course raiding each week. The carrots being dangled saying, look, don't miss out on any emblems. Log on each day and do a few heroics. But if you can't log on, it really isn't massively impactful in the long run because you can still get your tier pieces from the raid. And there isn't that many totally amazing items from emblems that you don't want to be without. But putting player power aside, you've got achievements, which some people love and some people hate. But wanting to log on every day just to get your 100 Warsong Gulch wins, for example, or getting your Drake from doing the Glory of the Hero achievements, there's a lot of reason to keep logging in if you're trying to 100% everything you do in the game. That's without thinking about dailies for your professions, general gold farming, and whatever else you can think of. If we rewind back to where we are today in Classic TBC, a lot of what we spoke about just doesn't exist and really damages retention. There is no incentive to do heroic dungeons at all because Karazhan's just easier, there's better loot, it's more convenient. All tier 4 and 5 is a joke even for the most average pug, and let's not even try to pretend tier 6 is remotely difficult. Outside of just logging on for those few hours each week to clear raids, there is very little to worry about. Maybe you need to do some gold farming or use profession cooldowns, and we are talking about the here and the now. So yes, you can be preparing stuff for Wrath of the Lich King by working on achievements and reputations and whatever else you can think of, but that is ultimately content that is really for Wrath of the Lich King, not for now. We just know it's coming, so we start doing it now. The problem here is the knock-on effect you personally might not directly see other than the fact that your server looks like it's dying and you don't understand why. You're having a great time, right? So what's everyone else's problem? Getting all your raid gear, having fun in your guild, maybe even leveling alts or doing PvP, you're having fun. Someone who returns to the game, such as me, wants to go and do some heroics they haven't done for months, either just for fun or just to work on reputations. I saw it with my own eyes a couple of nights ago logging onto Mirage Raceway. Trying to find a group to literally any heroic was almost impossible. In fact, after about an hour, I just gave up and logged off. How many people are just giving up and logging off and not returning? Because if you aren't on one of the mega servers, trying to find anything to do outside of raiding is just so time consuming, you just can't be bothered. This is another big point, the word time. If you have an hour or two to play before you go out or before you get ready for work or whatever it is you're doing, do you really want to be spending the vast majority of that just trying to find a group and possibly by the end of it not even getting anywhere? Loads of people hate on Random Dungeon Finder being able to just queue, get a heroic done for either your emblems or just actually for fun to flex your DPS becomes incredibly convenient, doesn't consume a great deal of time, and people are actively doing them throughout all tiers of content to get their emblems each day. And those emblems are still useful, even if you're in full BIS gear, because you can get gems to sell, BOE epics to sell, heirloom items for your ult, the list goes on. Blizzard need to take a long, hard look at their philosophy of what they want Classic to be, because at the moment they're failing. They've just released Phase 3, which even for the more casual players I know, have cleared it already. In a month or so they'll start getting bored, then the potential of cancelling their sub until new content comes out is on the horizon, which can even lead to them finding another game they fall in love with and never return. Feeling like you haven't got a reason to log on to any MMO is the biggest risk for a company, and the opposite end of the spectrum is feeling forced to log on and not particularly enjoying what you're actually doing, or if you don't log on, you feel left behind. There needs to be balance. Wrath really does balance it, but if they don't address the issue of retention now, the numbers will just continue to decline, and games like New World...
You know, what the hell is, you know, it doesn't make any sense what you said.
Alright, Lost Ark, Final Fantasy and many others will reap the rewards because they have reasons to keep these players logging back in every day. Well, what do, you ask? They really don't need to reinvent the wheel here. There just needs to be incentives for all gear levels of players to be running content that doesn't directly give them upgrades. So let's use Heroic Dungeons as an example. Attunements being removed was a major failure to these dungeons. At least with them in place, people leveling alts would still be doing normals and heroics, which new mains would get to see more opportunities for groups. So removing the major reason for running these heroics means another incentive needs to be put in its place to keep these dungeons alive. You only have to look at the Badge of Justice vendor to see how pointless it's become and how quickly, even into Phase 1, it was almost redundant. Simply adding some profession related items like tailoring cloths, enchanting shards, JC uncut gems, or even leather would give you something to use them on for gold making purposes. It would probably be enough that you would run a few heroics every day just to get your clothies their crafted gear a bit quicker, or your alts some crafted gear quicker, or just to get free gems for your raid gear. Adding a couple of pieces of the previous tier tokens could be a thing. So in tier 6 you can get 2 pieces of tier 5 from badges. If you want to get some resto gear as a feral main druid, or Ellie gear as a resto shaman main, we're talking off spec. You can just run some heroics to get a couple of bits that you haven't got yet. It would just help keep the content relevant that retention of the player base relies on. I think people forget that there is a portion of the player base that prefer just logging on, doing a bit of farming, then doing some small group play like 5-man heroics, and have zero interest in raiding. You take away the small group play accessibility and all you'll see is servers slowly die down, leaving only those interested in raiding and PvP left. The server starts to die down, what does everyone do? Give Blizzard money for their flawed, overlooked systems to move their character to one of the big populated servers just so you can get a group for something. I don't even want to start on the poor management of server and faction balance. We'd literally be here all day. The badge vendor is just one small example of something that could be done. You could make the daily heroic quest more worthwhile by increasing the gold it rewards, adding a loot cache to it that's got a small chance of rewarding an item or profession related materials. Making things feel fresh and new is of course one that a lot of people ask for, but also would massively go outside of the philosophy of what Classic Classic is, which is to deliver a similar experience of that what it was back in the day. The player base, on the other hand, has moved on, more advanced, still want to hold on to the nostalgia, but would probably welcome new challenge. So things like adding mechanics to bosses, adding mythic modes to existing dungeons, among other things, are absolutely things that I would never want to see taken off the table. The final point of what could and definitely would increase player retention is Blizzard being more transparent with their plans. Take the Marvel Cinematic Universe as an example. We've known about Doctor Strange 2 for years, before it even had a title. We only have one meaningful raid left to be added in TBC, and that's Sunwell Plateau. You can't sit there and tell me Blizzard aren't already working on Wrath of the Lich King Classic, or at least discussing internally when they're gonna start working on it. Knowing what's gonna happen in the future will affect your mindset in the present. A post from Blizzard saying once SWP has run its course, there's a new threat looming in Northrend. That would be enough to drive people back to the game now with the sole purpose of preparing for the next expansion. And there would be some player engagement there that people who are already playing the game will start putting some effort in to preparing for the next expansion as well. Because what you've currently got looming over your head is, what if I do all this now and we don't get Wrath Classic? What a waste of time that was. Blizzard, a message to you. Be more transparent. Talk to your community, your customers who want the game to succeed and will help you with its success if you could just show that you have a plan instead of having your customers sat feeling like you're winging every phase that comes out. And ultimately, give us some confidence. You want to work with us to deliver the best possible experience for new and returning players. Thank you for watching. Roll the outro. There's lots of ways you can support the channel to keep me here putting out World of Warcraft content and covering all future MMOs. Consider joining the channel as a member. You get access to emotes, everyone will know you're a member when you comment on future videos because you get a nice icon next to your name, and you get access to members only videos, which I'll be putting a lot of on the channel throughout the year. Additionally, there's a Patreon link in the description as well. Thank you for watching all the way to the end, and I'll see you on the next one.